Hello, I'm Bob the Booker and welcome to my channel, and I hope everyone's doing well as we approach November, and because I am a fan of puns, of Fitzcarraldo and of Annie Ernaux, then this means we end up with Ernauxvember, and this was something that sort of I've been doing for a little bit, which is basically just a sort of, it's mostly an excuse to make a very terrible pun, but Annie Ernaux is an author who I've really greatly enjoyed reading. She is a French diarist and non-fiction writer, won the Nobel Prize last year, and is just generally a really fascinating writer, I think, in many, many ways. I've covered a few books of hers in other videos before, but Annie Ernaux writes very personal sort of essays and diaries that are all about various aspects of her personal life, and particularly various things that kind of come together in really interesting ways. So she often talks a lot about French society and French society in the scope of the wider world and the wider sense of politics. So, for example, she wrote a book, The Happening, which I really greatly enjoyed, sorry, not The Happening, Exteriors even. The Happening is also great. But Exteriors and The Years, which is a big, sort of more famous book of hers. And between those two books, she talks quite a lot about French politics and France's place in the world in a wider global context. So, for example, what was happening in France while things like 9/11 were taking place, and there was this sort of rising sort of form of Islamophobia, for example, what that then looked like in France. She talks a lot about the personal in relation to the political. So, for example, she talks in The Happening about her sort of seeking a lot of kind of medical care, particularly an abortion, and she talks a lot in those books about various sort of things about being a woman in modern society and what some of those things can look like. She also turns her lens at things like capitalism or consumerism more broadly. She focuses that lens often at political figures and what they're doing. But a lot of these are deeply, deeply personal, where she'll also write a book about an affair that she had with a younger man or an older man in another book. She just has this really interesting scope of writing, and I just find her really engaging in the way she's able to make very clever observations about what's happening in the world. And the reason I sort of was doing November before is I thought that this was partly a good thing for me to have some extra motivation to go and read Annie Ernaux books that I've been wanting to read. But also, I kind of wanted to share the gift of Ernaux with the world. I think she's a writer that I think so many people really get on with for a very good reason. And I think I just sort of wanted to have an extra little prompt or push for people to check out Annie Ernaux's work if they've been thinking about doing so before. And Ernaux, I just think, is brilliant in so many ways. And I had two Ernaux books that I've been wanting to read, so I thought, why not do them for Ernauxvember? And so we have I Will Write to Avenge My People, very dramatic title, but it's the name of a lecture she gave, and this was particularly her a speech she gave to address the Nobel team as well. But it's based in sort of something she wrote in her own diary as a child, as a kind of way of what she's going to do to be a writer in future. And then we have The Young Man, which is her writing about an affair she had, and in wonderful Ernaux fashion, I'm very, very excited to see what she says here. And both of them are very, very slim books, you'll have noticed. Ernaux typically writes very, very short pieces of writing. The Years, I think, is her longest, maybe, and that's about 250 pages or something. Most of her books are 100 pages or less, or fewer. Or under. There we go. Let's go with that. They are short books, but I think there's something about the episodic nature of them, the way that she focuses her lens on one specific topic and really mines that for personal and political conversations, that I think is just so fascinating. So this is basically a this is a long, rambly way of me saying, I think she's really great. If you want to check out some Ernaux books, check out another video that I've got on some of my favourite Ernaux books. But if not, just pick anywhere and kind of start. She's got a fair few to go through. I think The Years and Exteriors are two of my personal favourites, and I think are great places to start, particularly The Years, which I think does a really great job of mixing the personal and political. I think Happening is really powerful in many, many ways. And I think that's also a really great way to understand some of her other writing as well. I'm going to read these two. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. I'm also very aware that people are understandably not always that happy to spend money on a book that is incredibly short. I get that. If you feel like you're able to, if you want to buy them, I think it's Fitzcarraldo in the UK and Seven Stories Press in the US and Canada. I want to say, I don't know what that looks like for the rest of the world, but I think they sometimes ship to other places as well. There's also Scribd, which is, this is not an ad, but Scribd exists, and most of Ernaux's books are on there, either as a sort of an ebook or as the audiobook as well, if you want to check those out. There is a link in my bio, there's a link below. Again, this is not sponsored, but there is a link there if you want to check out Scribd, have a little look around. Other places exist. Check your libraries. But Ernaux, I think, is a fantastic way to sort of pass time. I really love her insights. I really love the way she writes and the way that she is able to be so absolutely raw and personal, often about some of the most harrowing life events that she could have faced, but still manages to find ways of connecting it back to a bigger whole. These never, for me, feel too self-indulgent. There's something really profound about the way she writes. And I think the Nobel Prize Committee agreed, hence the prize. Anyway, take care. I hope you are doing really well, and feel free to drop in the comments any other ideas of Ernaux books that you think people should be reading. I think I've just mentioned a few of them, but she has a big back catalogue, so do check them out. I've been Bob the Booker. Take care and speak to you all soon. Bye-bye. Happy Ernauxvember or something like that.